reporter and somebody that has an inside track of what's going on throughout the country and the political scene. And he was just, needless to say, very informative, very enlightening, and also just very enjoyable. And last week we had Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana speak, and New Hampshire as well. And Monday, as I said, we were in New Hampshire. Yesterday we were in Connecticut, and today we're in Rhode Island. And I think tomorrow we might be in another state. So it's been very, very busy, to say the least. But again, I just want to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here today. And I'd like to thank the person who was responsible for the breakfast. It's not the New England Council, Organogenesis, who are here today. And you're going to hear from Arthur Paul Petronelli, who will introduce in a very formal introduction of our guest speaker here this morning. But we want to thank them. And you should be very pleased to know that they have a major anchor here in Rhode Island and in Massachusetts. And it's an extraordinary company. We talked about some of their successes last evening, but basically what they do is they save lives, and they save people from suffering some severe pains, and with their regenerative medicine, and they develop this medicine, they manufacture it all here in New England. So they are a gem, to say the least, and we're very fortunate to have them as a member of the New England Council, and I'm sure you are very fortunate to have them here in this great state. I also want to recognize Arthur Paul, who will be introducing a very special guest here. Arthur is the Assistant Vice President, Government and Community Relations. He was recently appointed nationwide search to the Rhode Island Council on Post-Secondary Education. And somebody told me he was on the third ballot. They said, let's give it to Arthur. You know, he's a good guy. But we want to congratulate Arthur in his new role. A wise decision by the governor and his administration to appoint someone who is as talented, giving, creative, innovative, and someone who has a huge heart and trying to do the right thing in higher education. So again, we thank the governor for recognizing Arthur for this position. On Monday next week, we're going to welcome the United States Deputy Secretary of Energy to a special program that's focused on the regional energy outlook here in New England. It's always a big issue. I know the governor might talk about his role and what he did with FERC and his other governors, but we're going to be talking about the winter, the coldest winter that we've had in some 20 years, and we're going to have many members of the New England Council who are going to be on the panel as well, so it's going to be a great event. And then finally, on July 16th, we'll be back in Washington, where your Congressman Seth Magaziner will be speaking to the New England Council members that we have in Washington. And so, needless to say, very, very busy. And as you know, we celebrated our 100th anniversary last year, the New England Council. Mornings like this, I feel like 100 years of age. But one of the things we did last year, we had like 1,900 people at our event in Boston, which is extraordinary, 1,900 people from all 6 New England states. But what we recognized in doing of our special occasion is that we wanted to find ways of giving back to the community. So the wisdom of members of the board of directors of the New England Council said, why don't we give a substantial amount of money to nonprofits throughout New England and hire young men and women to work in the summer and hopefully gain some type of meaningful employment, but learn an awful lot about the work that they're doing. So we decided to do that last year, and then this year we decided to do even more of these nonprofits throughout New England, all 6 New England states. But in this state here, College Visions was one of the nonprofits that was selected, as well as the Pawtucket Central Falls Development, and the supervisors here, Linda Weisinger, and Edwin is here. Edwin Samora is here, and he's the fellow. But we have all these fellows all over New England, so we're very pleased to be able to do that program. But it's pleasing also to see extraordinary talented young people, extraordinary, who are very, very, very bright people who want to make a contribution, and so it's great. And then finally, we have our New Englander again dinner coming up, and we have Pam Everhart, who will be one of our recipients, Senior Vice President, Fidelity. Senator Angus King of Maine will be a recipient, as well as Jean Shaheen of New Hampshire, who will be leaving the United States Senate, and a great loss. Senator John Kennedy, Republican of Louisiana, has a book out and talk about how to test for being stupid, and he mentioned in his remarks, Jean Shaheen is one of the nicest people to work with in the United States Senate. It's nice to hear both parties working together, so that's the way she is. And we also have a filmmaker, you might know him, Ken Burns, will also be speaking to the New England Council. We're thrilled to have him back. 250th anniversary, to get him to come to our dinner is quite an honor. And we also have Eliza Dushku, who's a mental health advocate, but some of you may know her. She's also been a movie star in the past. So these are the awards that we'll be giving out. But with that, now that I've given you the commercial in New England Council, my job is very simple, is to introduce Arthur Paul Petrosnelli, who is well known here. We had dinner last night, and I felt like I was meeting with the mayor or even the governor last night. People coming up to Arthur saying, "Hey, Arthur, good to see you. Congratulations on your new role." So it was an honor to sit with him and Antonio as well. But again, thank you for being here, and I'm going to turn it over to Arthur Paul.
Thank you, Jim. It is a pleasure to be here with the New England Council. I see Ashley and Margaret and Natasha, and let's give them a round of applause by putting this together. The New England Council organization has nearly a century served as one of the most important platforms for business policy, innovation across the region, and conversations occurring today about Rhode Island and New England, and I am honored to introduce a man working at the forefront of shaping that future. Governor Dan McKee took office in 2021 as Rhode Island's 76th governor, and from the start, he has made it very clear that he doesn't think small, he thinks big. He's announced the Rhode Island 2030 project, which is a comprehensive blueprint for a stronger, more competitive state, ambitious in his design, reflecting in his strong belief that Rhode Island's best chapter lies ahead. I've had the pleasure of working closely with his administration, and I want to put a special thank you to Jim Bennett, who's the Secretary of Commerce, and his work with us. And the governor's administration and strength for the life sciences sector in the Ocean State. He has put forward $115 million in economic development bond money, including direct investment in the life sciences, including the 195 district, Rhode Island's Life Science Hub, which is a catalyst for innovation and commercialization in the state. It is not a marginal investment. It reflects the governor's understanding that the life science sector is more than a healthcare story. It's a job creation story, a workforce development story, and an economic competitive story for the entire, not just Rhode Island, but New England. And the governor has taken steps to ensure Rhode Island plays a meaningful role in that. Governor McKee understands that a thriving life science workforce depends heavily on an education system. And he has set large goals and objectives in serving Rhode Island students. His administration's investment in University of Rhode Island and Rhode Island College, statewide STEM workforce, development in innovations, creating a talent pipeline for valuable biotech jobs in the future. Governor McKee understands growth doesn't occur in isolation, and he has shown that. Growth is achieved when government, business, and academic institutions work together to make Rhode Island stronger. A personal note, I want to thank the governor, as Jim mentioned, for nominating me to the Rhode Island Secondary Higher Ed Committee. And it is my great pleasure to introduce Governor Dan McKee.
Yes, so Jim, thank you. And Ken Burns, to let you know that I invited Ken Burns here to the state in the fall, and he showed up. I met him in Washington, called him up, says, hey, Rhode Island is one of the 13 original states, and we want you to come here because we want to make sure that people who live in this state know the role that we played in founding this country. And now we're in the 250th anniversary, and very proud to be governor during that time frame. And I wanted to just give you, there's many people in this room that I know, some that maybe have heard me speak once or twice or never. But look, I'm a kid that grew up at a boys' club. I see Gary's already left. Looks like he's already left the room. But in Cumberland. And we just had our 70th anniversary of the club that my dad started. Opened up on my birthday when I was 5, so you can add 70 and 5 to know how old I am. But that was the basis of what the work that I'm doing today. I am not a governor unless I had that experience to rub elbows with all walks of life at a young age. And to continue doing that work, I was president of the club, started the endowment fund, left the boardroom and went into the gym and coached for years, and coached again with young people that comes from every corner, every possible area, whether the kids were struggling in families economically, whether they had single moms, whether they were black, whether they were Irish, whether they were Laotian, Puerto Rican. I had a Jewish Cuban kid on my team, for God's sakes. So I have lived an experience that I bring to the governor's office like no one else has ever had. And as a result of that, I am committed to making sure that we do 4 things. And that's our 2030 plan. One is, let's make sure we give our young people every opportunity to reach their potential. Let's make sure that we provide the basis and the foundation so that every family can earn a good living and increase their incomes. And let's make sure that we do everything we can to keep people healthy. When I was managing the largest snowstorm in the history of the state of Rhode Island that no one remembers because I think we did a pretty good job. Everybody remembers the blizzard of 78. For God's sake, Governor Garrett, he's got his flannel shirt in a museum. I don't have my jacket in a museum, but I wore it proudly with number 76 on it. We were finalizing the finances, complicated financing to save 2 hospitals in the state of Rhode Island, and we closed that at midnight on the Wednesday of the snowstorm to make sure that both hospitals that were in bankruptcy stayed in business. And 2,400 jobs were on the firing line, the chopping block. And thousands, tens of thousands of visits that people need to stay healthy were protected. So I'm happy to be here. Kind of, if I shift in and out of campaign mode right now, please forgive me. I'm waking up in the morning and I'm doing both at the same time and trying to do both very well. But Rhode Island does have the momentum. Let's just throw out a couple stats, and then I'm going to get into the reason why we're showing the progress we have. Since I've been governor, we've added over 37,000 private sector jobs in the state of Rhode Island. That's twice the pace of pre-pandemic. And as Jim Bennett knows, as president of Commerce, I've restructured the entire Commerce Department and the Commerce Board so that both small business and big business have a seat at the table. And that's how you grow the economy. You do it by jobs. And one of the things I say, whether I'm with LIUNA, with the trades, the unions, non-union, it's JOBS every day. JOBS. You want to take the need that we have? There's some people who might want to expand that need. I want to contract that. Contract it with good paying jobs without causing pain for those who have the need. 37,000 and growing. And then the pipeline, there's more jobs coming. Just down at Quonset, we have over 3,000 jobs that have been added. We have a bond on the ballot, I think that Arthur mentioned, $115 million bond to make sure that we can expand that again with another 1 million square feet and another 3,000 jobs into electric boat. So the wages are rising. One example in the life science, there was no life science hub before I showed up. It didn't exist. Today it does. And we've built a brand new state health lab in the 195 district, a 200,000 square foot building. Complicated financing again. When the developer wasn't going to put a letter of a commitment together to make sure that the funding was there, if something happened, I said shut down the project. We're not going forward unless we have the security to know that this project is going to get finished. Guess what? They signed the paperwork. 200,000 square feet. 80,000 for a brand new state health lab. When I came into office, we were the lowest vaccinated state in the country. We had the highest death rate and the highest infection rate, and we were working out of a state health lab with no windows and leaks coming through the ceiling and containers picking up that water. We were kicking the can down the road in this state for far too long, and I'm picking up the ball, and we're fixing things, and that's one of the things we fixed. And 120,000 square feet of that space is into the life science hub, which we already have started to fill with incubator spaces that are going to pay off for decades to come. One of the things I did as a mayor, I had a 5-point downgrade when I became mayor in town of Cumberland. The day I showed up. Before I left, I had 8 upgrades in my town. I've already had 2 upgrades of our bond rating since I've been governor. And visiting down in New York with Moody's and Fitch and Standard & Poor's, which I'm very familiar with. I think one of my ads says, I might not be the most polished guy as governor, but I get things done. And we are getting things done. Let's talk education for a second. I made a commitment that we would meet or exceed Massachusetts levels by 2030. Now, it wasn't just one sentence and then let's go throw the dice and see whether it's going to happen. We were very intentional about what we did. We invested in our K through 12. We've invested close to $4 billion in construction for new schools since I've been governor. That's a commitment to that goal of meeting or exceeding Massachusetts levels by 2030. $4 billion. We started a Learn 365 program. We're opening 21 municipal learning centers because I have compact signs with 38 out of 39 municipal leaders to help us meet or exceed those goals that I've set. 21 learning centers are opening up for year-round education, helping with earnings, and helping with health. I'll digress a little bit. My Monday, I want to just tell you about my Monday. So Monday, I show up at the Tidewater facility in Pawtucket. I was the tie-breaking vote during an election with 38 studios cloud hanging over our heads. And I took the deciding vote to build a soccer stadium in Pawtucket because I was not going to turn my back on that city any longer. Others have. So I'm there on the site. By the way, over 250,000 visits at that soccer stadium since it's opened up 13 months ago. They filled the place with anybody go to the comedy show? There was a comedy show there. They filled 12,000 people in that stadium just about 2 weeks ago. A big success. And I'm very happy that it's a big success, because if it wasn't, I'd be sitting there with a big problem on my hands right now. But we sat there, and I said it once, I've said it 100 times, we're going to build a bridge over the water, and we're going to connect it into housing in the city of Pawtucket, and we made that announcement the other day. We put the financing together. We're building the infrastructure around that park for the walkways and the bikeways and the different construction that are going to facilitate new retail, new housing, and that bridge is going to cross that water, and it's going to connect into several hundred housing units. Remember, there was no housing plan when I showed up. There was no Secretary of Housing when I showed up. There was no governance model for the first 2 years that we could actually manage the housing issue. We have a plan, and that production of housing in Pawtucket is just a piece of the pie. 7,000 housing units have either started or been completed since I've been governor. And Jim, 2 years ago, we were talking about that, right? Today, I can actually say, this is what we've got done. Let's talk higher education. Let's talk higher education. Let's talk about career paths that put people on a path to earn a good living. President Costigan's here. By the way, the first graduate of CCRI to be president of that college. Give her a round of applause, please. And she's committed to making sure that we connect in the 2030 plan with what happens on that university. And by the way, part of the bond, the most aggressive bonding ever in the history of the state of Rhode Island, my own team told me, be careful, don't be so aggressive. $600 million of bonding will go out to vote in November. And it'll build an innovation center on the CCRI campus in Warwick. I made the college promise permanent. We have, if not the most affordable higher ed in the country, I believe it is, but I would say that we're in the top echelons of affordability, made the college promise permanent. Let's talk Rhode Island College. Rhode Island College was on life support when I became governor. It was on life support when Jack Warner became president. I met with Congressman Langevin. He was one of the first calls when he decided not to run for office. He called me up. I was at his house near Goddard Park in Warwick within 48 hours to say, Jim, you're a Rhode Island College graduate. We need help there at that school. Would you please consider being involved in that? He's the cybersecurity expert for 20 years, 10 to 20 years in the Congress. He was going to be asked in all places of the country to show his talent and bring that talent to some level of higher education. He chose to help start a cybersecurity school at Rhode Island College that did not exist before I was governor. We'll have 1,000 students in that school, graduating 250 into six-figure jobs. That's how you raise incomes. Jack Warner has done the job there. Not only has he turned it from a red sheet on the balance sheet of several millions of dollars, but now it's on the black side of the ledger. And he had the largest freshman enrollment class this year in 15 years at Rhode Island College. Give him a round of applause. And we will break ground on that cybersecurity school because I put on a bond in 2024. I put on a bond to build a cybersecurity building. So it's a school on that campus. And now AI is like exploded, so now we're adding AI to it 2 years later. We're going to break ground on that building very shortly. I could go on education, but don't leave out URI. URI, when I visited the Bay campus, had not invested $1 in those facilities in over 60 years. They win A10 track tournaments, and they don't have a track to actually do a tournament there. The football bleachers were falling down, and the baseball field was, hey, I played on a state championship high school baseball team. I know what a good baseball field looks like. They did not have a good baseball field. They now today, we're putting over $200 million in their Bay campus. The steel is coming out of the ground. It's one of the top 4 oceanography schools in the country. And now it's going to have facilities to actually match that ranking. That did not exist before I was governor. That commitment to that school now is Wall Street Journal has rated URI as the top public university in New England 2 years in a row. That did not happen before I was governor. Let's talk about workforce development. What we're doing on workforce development and how we're connecting in companies. Rick is sitting here. 500 jobs he said he's going to have. I said, we need more than that. You know how many jobs Fidelity has added? By the way, Fidelity stepped up and put the first outdoor vaccination clinic, I guess you would call it, in the state, probably in the country. And Rick Meadows has really led the charge in many ways, being a partner with me. And by the way, there is a little bit of lineage here. He was a executive director of the Boys and Girls Clubs up in the Boston market for years, 11 clubs, I think. It was a lot of clubs. 3,000 jobs. They're approaching 3,000 jobs at Fidelity right now. Amazon, millions of square feet built. And I'll end this and I'll open up the questions. I know I've gone more than 10 minutes, but there's a lot to talk about here. A lot to talk about. Amazon, 3 million square feet. When I negotiated that, it was the first thing I negotiated with Commerce, with then Secretary Pryor, now Secretary again. I made sure that that was a prevailing wage job. It is the first in their network with prevailing wage. Not only that, I negotiated with them a number of $500,000 a year that's going to go into Commerce to help our small businesses compete on their platform for 5 years. We're going to get another renewal on that for another 5 years because we're coming up on that. And $250,000 a year to help me with the Learn 365 program in addition to what we're already doing with these learning centers. Breeze Airway. Our airport is one of the fastest growing airports in the country, and it continues. Travel Magazine says it's the #1 airport in the country. We never had a hub at that airport before I was governor. We never did destination marketing at that airport till I was governor. Today, Breeze Airways, Dave Nealman, who now is someone I sat down with as the CEO of Breeze Air, who was one of the starters of JetBlue. We have our first hub there. They started with 4 planes, 200 jobs. Within a year and a half, because of the destination marketing we put in, they doubled it up to 8 planes and 400 jobs. And today we're working with our higher education to actually create a pathway so that a maintenance facility for the Northeast will be built and expanding jobs there. Regent Aircraft down in Quonset. Andrew. Do I have 2 more minutes? Yeah, good. Okay. So Andrew, I got to tell you the story. So I watch in 60 Minutes, and they have this section about this 30-something billionaire called Palmer Luckey. And Palmer Luckey, now they tell me it's Andrew. And I'm saying, wait a minute, we just did something at Commerce to help Andrew build down at Quonset, where they started with 100,000 square feet and immediately went to 150,000 square feet because they said, this is a place where we can find job training that can fill our need there. So I said to their government people, all right, so the 30-something billionaire is on 60 Minutes talking about Andrew, and I'm sitting there saying, I think there's a connection. Yes, there is. By the way, have you ever seen Palmer Luckey? Palmer Luckey's got a goatee down to here. He wears shorts. He wears sandals that don't match. He walks, but he's brilliant. So I said, I want to meet that guy. I want to meet that guy. He's out in California. I want to thank him for his business. I want to ask him to share his network with us. And I want to have him join this club of innovators that Rick Meadows is helping us put together with other innovators, along with Gary and others. So I go out to California, and I fly out. And by the way, now they say, go to Stanford University. I says, Stanford. I never was able to get into Stanford University. And be on a panel to talk about our blue economy, our maritime defense, which is another whole story that I could spend another hour on with you with that. And I go on a panel at Stanford, and who's on the panel? Somebody with Andrew, somebody from Regent, and I'm just sitting there as a governor saying, yeah, we're doing some good stuff in Rhode Island. Come out and see us. And then they're both saying, we're doing business in Rhode Island because of the governor, because he's created this platform that we can actually be successful off of. So I fly from San Francisco to Los Angeles. By the way, I came home from Los Angeles on Breeze Air, took a picture of the people who checked me in, and I sent a picture to Dave Neeleman, the CEO. He was very happy that I was using Breeze Air. And I meet with Palmer Luckey. And he comes in, not disappointing. I did a little podcast before. I tried to see what he was going to talk about. He would talk about these things that we would never think of, so I said, let's just let him talk. He's talking about floating cities. He's talking about experimental brain surgery. He's talking about communicating with dogs on a human level. I'm just letting him talk. But in the end, I went out to California to thank that individual for investing in Rhode Island. And by the way, I met with another company that actually came out and had dinner with us in Newport. And now they're potentially coming to Rhode Island. I got my finger on the scale. And it's working. Andrew, Vatten Systems, AAA with John Galvin. He could have chose to go to another state. He made sure he was here. 400 jobs develop in Red and Lincoln. That's just a little bit of what we're doing here right now in Rhode Island. So I'm going to just end it the way I started it. I'm a kid that grew up at a boys' club. And I rubbed elbows with every single possible family circumstance. I haven't lived it, every family circumstance, but I'm aware of it. And the work that we're doing in this state right now is changing our state. And I'm proud of it. And I'm proud of the partners that I have in this room and beyond this room. And we're going to continue to do that. 4 basic things. It's not hard to understand. We're going to help our young people reach their potential. We're going to make sure our families are earning more money. Just on the life science alone, we've doubled the number of people that work in the life science. We've taken them from $105,000 average pay to $170,000 just in 2 years. We're going to help families earn more money. We're going to do everything we can and invest in a way that we've never invested before. When I showed up, there was across-the-board cuts to hospitals, across-the-board cuts to nursing homes, and I fixed that. And I restored the COLAs to the nursing homes that hadn't been done for 6 years. And then finally, we're going to keep building things in this state at rates that we've never seen before. And the one thing that I think people miss, so when we're building at URI or this health lab in Providence or the soccer stadium in Pawtucket or the Amazon building in Johnston, guess what we're doing? We're putting people to work. And those men and women who are working, building things, they go home with a paycheck. And that paycheck allows them to pay their bills and raise their family and own a home. That's what we're doing. So many of you have heard this story before. Some of you haven't. Spread the word. What we're doing, we're putting people to work at good paying jobs, and the things that we're building are going to pay off for decades to come, whether it's on our college campuses or whether it's in our private industry, that's the ticket to a good economy. That's a ticket to the good economy. It's working. And I appreciate being here today to be able to explain some of the things we're doing. And if I overstayed my welcome, I'm sorry I got into a little bit of the campaign mode, but I'm telling you, this campaign is very important. And to keep this progress going, I'm hoping to be there to see these things actually happen through 2030. Thank you so much for having me here today.
The governor has a couple of minutes for questions. He could probably rather hear from a constituent than somebody who's not a constituent. I would just say, he mentioned about the housing stock that he's working very hard on. In the last 5 years, I just read that the housing permits have increased 150%, which is pretty impressive. So he hasn't taken his eye off of the housing shortage problem here in the state. Questions for the governor? Don't all
No,
raise your
but I will finalize. I see Catherine Taylor over here, and she's working so damn hard on the issues of do with Social Security. I put an affordability for all plan in my budget this year. So we talked about economy, Jim, and all the economy things, but you also have to set the foundation. So one, I've offered put together a child tax credit. First ever child tax credit was passed this year when I signed the budget, and I presented that in my State of the State. We wanted to make sure that I put out a plan to save ratepayers $1 billion on their electric bill. The General Assembly only did half the job, and we need to go back and make sure we put pressure on the General Assembly to finish that job. And then Social Security, which is AARP's number one priority. By the way, child tax credit was kids count's number one priority, and I took care of that. The first thing I put, we got a jump start on it, better than what we had before. We helped about 10,000 people not pay Social Security tax when the next Social Security when the next tax filing happens. The first thing I layer into the budget, like I did last year, I made a commitment that we would fully fund the Veterans Home in Bristol, and that first line item they put in the budget was that, and then I built the budget around that. The first thing I put in the budget this year is to fully eliminate the Social Security tax in the state of Rhode Island. That's my first thing I'm going to put in the budget. And then we'll see whether the General Assembly keeps it in there. But I have to deal with the General Assembly too. I'm sorry about that, Jim, but I just had to mention that. Okay?
Was there anything that you didn't get in the budget that you wish you did?
A line item veto. That's what I wish I had. I asked for it. I put it in my budget. Line item veto. Didn't get it. That would be a smart thing to do. About 46 states have a line item veto. It puts me in a tough spot in terms of how I can manage budget. And sometimes I'm passing budgets that have some things in there I don't like, but I got to look at the total package. Line item veto. Yeah.
Questions?
Good. All right, then. Oh, yes.
With the big, beautiful bill coming to
God.
Here's a mic.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Hi, thank you.
You want to identify yourself?
Sure. Deb O'Brien, Community Resources for Justice. We do reentry work here in Pawtucket. With the big, beautiful bill coming to fruition in January with some of the differences that are going to happen and without the tax credits, are you worried about what will happen to Medicaid here in the state?
Yeah, petrified. With what's happening out of Washington, I didn't really speak to that in my comments, but I can tell you right now that we're fighting the Trump administration every single day. I'm the first governor when the government shutdown happened last fall and SNAP benefits were being removed from people who needed the SNAP benefits. I'm the first governor that stepped up and said, hey, find me the money. No family's going to be without that benefit. And I'm proud to say that no family lost that benefit, and I made sure that everybody was entitled to the SNAP. But that was unnecessary. That put a workload on us that we didn't need with all the other challenges we have. And then in my budget as well, millions and millions of dollars. Some people say, why are you doing a millionaire's tax? Well, we got to raise dollars to offset losses of health care. So in my budget, we have offset about well, I think we're projecting as many as 30,000 people who will be without health care in the state of Rhode Island based on the big, beautiful bill. And we put coverage in to at least keep 20,000 people who have the biggest need with health insurance. And that list goes on and on. The dollars, by the way, on rural health, the rural health funding, we were the largest, highest rural health awardee in the country on a per capita basis, with about $156 million over 5 years, almost $750 million. So we are doing the work in the area where we're trying to figure those things out. But we know that when there's people without health insurance, the hospitals are going to get pressured, and their uncompensated care is going to rise. So we put additional dollars in that'll be the equivalent of close to $30 million of money that wasn't there, potentially, that the hospitals will have some stress on the uncompensated care. So what you're asking is absolutely true. Not only that, you've got the issues that happened in Minneapolis on an overreach by ICE, and I'm standing there saying I'm not going to break the Constitution by giving out private information just because then Attorney General Bondi is asking for it. I just ignored it. So every day we're fighting that battle, and every day we're doing it in such a way that we're not picking fights that we don't need to pick, but we're picking the fights that we have to pick. And one of the issues with the Resolution Win, right? They want to shut that down. President Trump is actually buying out contracts all over the country, and we prevailed because we all put our efforts together. And with Governor Lamont, who was sharing in Revolution Win, we got together and we put on the full court press and talked to now Interior Secretary Burgum, who was a former governor as well, that I know personally, and making sure that we were sending our message that that's not going to happen. So, but your point on it's not very beautiful. The bill is not very beautiful, put it that way. And we'll fight, but we'll also not give up, right? We won't give up. We will figure a way around this to making sure that we're doing what I've said we're going to do in this, in terms of the goals that I've set in the state. Yeah.
All the way in the back, and just identify yourself too.
Thank you. Thank you. Lori Mance, representing the Alzheimer's Association and my company, Dementia Training for Life. It's a new issue, but it's very near and dear to my heart. Home-based community care. And the new push now for states not to provide that home-based community care. What can we do within the community to make sure that individuals with disabilities can stay in their homes and get the services they need?
Yeah, well, thank you for your work on Alzheimer's. You know that I became educated on that when I was a lieutenant governor. And then Governor Roberts had a plan in there. She's left. But and I got all in on that, right? We got actually a state-approved plan. And we continue to invest in a way that in that space. On the home care issue, I don't want to speak out of turn. I don't want to speak without understanding exactly. But I know that we are making provisions right now in some of the legislation that I've signed to allow more home-based type of care. And we'll continue to try to do what we can, right? And again, for all the business people in the room and anybody that's running a nonprofit or whatever it is, we have two sides of the ledger. We got the income and the expense, and we got to make sure it's balanced. So, but we see that I see that as an issue that we need to rally around. Yeah.
Well, one final question. Identify yourself.
Yeah.
Wait for the mic. Hopefully, have a couple of minutes for a photo with the governor. Anyone like?
Good morning, Governor. Marissa Ruff from Seven Hills, Rhode Island. First, I want to thank you for your investment into people with disabilities across the state in your budget. One of the things that I wanted to ask is, as you know, Department of Justice federally has been talking about the Olmstead Act, which is people with disabilities being able to live in home and community-based services, and there's a real fear of reinstitutionalizing people with disabilities. So do you have any thoughts on that, and what is your overall plan to protect some of Rhode Island's most vulnerable people?
Yeah, again, I think that we've made progress even in this cycle. I know that there's more work to be done, but I see that as something that like I said before, look, if I have this much need in the state, I'm looking to reduce the need without causing pain to those who have the need. So we'll continue to take a look at things and where you can actually fit, balance the budget, which is a big deal. You have to be able to balance the budget and making sure that what we start, we can continue. So very happy to continue to talk about that. I think that we've done a few things. Again, off the top of my head, I can't recall. I've just signed about 400 bills and got an overview on every one of the bill in my office. I think it was about 7 hours of work. So I recall some of the things happening there. I think you've alluded to that. So just keep the advocacy going. That's a really important area to be advocating for, and we'll certainly support that effort. Yeah.
Well, we want to thank the governor for stopping by. He's always available, very accessible, and every time we have an opportunity to hear him, he gives us a real update on what is going on. He doesn't sugarcoat it, tells it like it is. It's not political prose, but it's from the heart. And he loves Rhode Island, and Rhode Island loves him. And I wish you luck as you continue in your journey. It's not easy times, to say the least, to be an incumbent and to be an elected official. It's you can't win, but you've not lost your drive in trying to help people in the disability community, help the elderly, the reinstitution people who are coming back to the community. You got a lot on your plate, and
You just do your best every day.
Yeah.
That's what I tell. That's how kids I coach. Do your best every day.